black man, and I know a few that would go to the doctor, and their reason for going was because they didn't want to get nagged by their significant other. Got their name on the bottom. You know, it says Nelly, special co-host. Speak Now, Hold Your Peace. Same thing for David. They come on the show. They my number one hitter. Every time there's a shooting, people are saying, you know, we need more gun control laws.
Welcome to Speak Now, Hold Your Peace, a live broadcast with real conversations about community social issues, politics, business, health, self-care, and more. We broadcast live on the Speak Now, Hold Your Peace Facebook group and the Speak Now, Hold Your Peace YouTube channel. And now, here's your host, Say What I Feel, Dre.
Welcome to Speak Now, Hold Your Peace. I'm Say What I Feel, Dre, and today I got two guests with me. Well, I got my co-host and one special guest with me. And today we're going to talk about this Roe versus Wade court ruling, overturned court ruling. Let me introduce my co-host, Dr. David Fagan. Brother David, what's going on, brother?
Hey, everybody.
All right. And I got a first-time guest. Hopefully it won't be the last because I feel that the brother's very intelligent. I think the brother might be able to have his face on a dollar bill, maybe a $5 bill. Give it up for my man, James Fred. James, what's going on, my brother?
Yo, what's good, fellas? What's good?
Ain't nothing, man.
All right.
Yo, I gotta say, you got one of the dopest intros I have ever seen.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you. All
and the
done.
music,
All done
like,
on my
I'm
own.
over here dancing.
I
to the
seen
music.
the shoulders wop like this.
Yeah,
Yo. I
you
was
know
like,
what I'm saying?
I thought he was going to start dropping those bars. I'm saying, hey, I'm with that.
Right, exactly, yo. I'm like, okay, all right, I must be doing something right. He doing his thing, he dropping the shoulders.
Yeah.
Woo! All right, yo. Yo, it's good to know. Good to know it's appreciated, though. Let's get into this, man. I want to talk about this Roe versus Wade court ruling that has been overturned. I'm gonna start with you, David. What's your opinion on it? What was your first reaction to it or thought to it?
All right. So we all know that, what was it? June 24th is when the official, ruling was released. We already heard about this 2 months ago. So we've been preparing ourselves. However, somebody leaked it, and there was the thought that perhaps the justices would change their minds. Obviously, Justice Roberts has been somewhat of a turning vote in some of the decisions. We thought that maybe that would turn things in the liberals' favor, but obviously it didn't. So we've been preparing ourselves for almost 2 months now. I think this is what they call a domino that starts in effect. We're going to get into it, obviously, but just the fact that several of the justices that have already talked about with Roe v. Wade being overturned, we have to start looking at other due process precedents, including cases that affected the right to contraception, same-sex relationships, and same-sex marriages, as well as interracial marriages, which is Loving v. Virginia. So we'll see where this takes us.
Right. James, what was your first reaction?
Man, it was expected, man. Like I said, we got, when it was leaked that that's what they were going to do. It was going to happen. Trump, when he was elected, made it clear that that's what he was shooting for. So, once that happened and he was able to set, people in the Supreme Court, I was telling everybody back then, just get ready. I'm saying? Like, just get ready. It's going to happen. Trump was able to do what he wanted to do for the people he wanted to do it for.
Right.
So you know what I'm saying? So this was just another domino effect. Because if you think about it, we hadn't talked no real conversations about Roe versus Wade in years until Trump came on the scene and started talking about it again.
Right.
So you know what I'm saying? It was going to happen. It wasn't surprising. But that's pretty much the way it was, man. It was just, and like you said, there probably will be a domino effect, and we can talk about that with some other things. But again, it was set up that way. That's the way it was supposed to happen.
Right, right. When I first heard it, I was just like I wasn't surprised either. But my first thought was, who's it going to impact most? And for me, in my opinion, and excuse me for some of my lack of research, but just what came to mind was that I think it was going to impact um, African American women, especially African American women who low income. Um, would you say that's a fair statement? Would either one of y'all say that's a fair statement?
It's
I'll let
definitely going
James.
to
You want to take
impact.
this one?
Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, I think yes and no, because you might want to step back and look at the larger scene. The reason why the conservatives are so upset about abortion is because they feel their numbers are being reduced. And all the population projections have shown that what by 2050, whites are going to be the majority minority, so about 49%. So,
Right.
when you look at that, then you got to look to see who's actually getting the abortions. And I will say, moving forward, we have to realize that all the numbers that anybody wants to throw out about abortions are just speculations because there's no law that states that Planned Parenthood
Right.
or anybody else that actually provides abortions has to provide those numbers to the government. So it's just these are all estimations, which is why if you talk to white conservatives, they'll tell you, yeah, 400 million black babies have been aborted since Roe v. Wade was overturned. The first thing I say is I didn't know that white conservatives cared about black babies that much. But I digress.
Exactly.
So that being said, if the Dre you asked, who's this going to affect the most? Well, remember this is actually targeted towards white women to prevent them from getting abortions. So then the white population, the numbers can go up. That's the intended effect here because
Mm.
black and brown women are not aborting their babies at the rates that are of concern. I mean, as you know, all of us here, we're all African American, and we're all roughly about the same age. Though I think we may have a couple of years on James, but black don't crack, so maybe he's 52. I don't know. Um, but that being said, when we were growing up, remember we were like 12, 13% of the population. Last time I checked, we're still 12, 13% of the population. I think that's a lie. I think we're actually more.
Hmm.
So if you want to know who this affects, it's really it's going to affect poor women, but it actually might affect poor white women.
Okay. Okay. And it's crazy because another thing that I thought, which is just my thoughts. Well, let me tell you. Let me say this first, and I forgot to say this at the beginning of the show. I'm going to need my Bible. I'm gonna play devil's advocate so much that I might need my Bible after this show so I can pray. I'm gonna tell you that right now because I'm gonna be devil's advocate, and I'm gonna tell you for all of those who are watching, these are not all of these views. These views are you got three different views, and the questions that I ask do not represent my views. It represents what somebody else may ask who's listening. So, with that said, um, let me ask you this. Hold on, let me just put this right here. And this came from I heard James. I actually heard you say this in
Mhm.
one of the shows that you did. I one could easily say that women's rights have not been taken. They can still get an abortion. I heard James say that women can still get an abortion. It's just that they may not be able to get it in their state. So they can always go to California. They can go to whatever state has it to be legal. They can go there. So are women's rights really being taken? This is the devil's advocate come kicking in. Are women's rights really being taken? That's the
Um,
question.
my opinion is no. Again, nobody can take your choice, right? You always have a choice. It's just that your choice may be made a little harder. For instance, if I make a choice that I want to eat seafood, that's a choice. But there are no seafood restaurants by my house, right? So that means I got to go out and I got to travel a little bit and drive a little bit to go get my seafood. Nobody took the choice from me. It's just that nobody built any seafood restaurants by my house. So, so you know, so there's the choice hasn't been taken. Yes, it's been made difficult. It has been made a little bit more difficult. But if a woman still wants to have an abortion, she can. We got to remember the only thing the Supreme Court did was just overturn Roe v. Wade. That's all the Supreme Court did. So the issue has to be taken up. If somebody has an issue, it's got to be taken up with the individual states. So, I mean, the only thing that happened was Roe v. Wade overturned. That's it.
David, you have a difference of opinion?
I don't have a difference of opinion with Brother James, but somebody has to throw up the red flag to this point of view, and I've heard it before. Is that yeah, in a large scheme of things, I mean, especially if you live in a blue state or a state like Virginia or New York or something like that, life goes on. The problem is with this country, and this is what I think you said earlier, Dre. When Donald Trump got into office, or I think you said it, James. He said he was going to pack the pro-life justices, and this is what happened. Okay, the fact that it's not going to make for women who want to have an abortion, it doesn't stop them from being able to get an abortion, but now they have to travel. That's not the point here. The point here is that the government, the federal government, basically now removed this barrier to where the federal government basically said a woman can't have dominion over her body. Now, some men don't have problems with that. There's women out there who don't have problems with that, right? But the problem is, where does this go from here? And James wants to say something. Go for it, bro.
I don't think that's what the Supreme Court is saying. Because
hold on a second. That may not be what they said, but we have to start separating between what these decisions say and then what it looks like in reality. Because at the end of the day, after June 24th, women woke up on June 25th, and if they wanted to have an abortion, okay, for whatever reason, okay, maybe they got raped, maybe health of the mother, any of those reasons, it became instantly illegal via those trigger laws in a whole bunch of states, and now their life is their options that they have is now being minimized. And if some people are okay with that, but I'm going to tell you, we hear about that thing about that slippery slope. Well, this is not a slippery slope. This is like a straight, slippery wall, right down to hell. So
You said right down to hell. Wow.
Right. Well, I feel you on that, and so I'm one of them people. Listen, first of all, I am pro-life. Okay, I am, but at the same time, I am also a realist. So I understand the ramifications and the consequences of my pro-life ideology. Right. So the Supreme Court struck down Roe versus Wade. It was not constitutional to begin with. It was strictly against Amendment 10. Went strictly against Amendment 10. Amendment 10 says that unless it is listed, the federal government, it has to go to the states. You understand? So in that case, it wasn't constitutional. So this is why I don't have a problem necessarily with Roe versus Wade being overturned. Now, what I will say is the states that are banning this, I don't think the states are prepared for the backlash of what happens now that you've taken this away. I don't think the people understand that it's going to start costing them money. I don't think, and like David, like you were saying, as far as They 100% are trying to get their numbers up. The last census told us that they were dwindling. So they are trying to get their numbers up. But that's going to backfire on them because Mexican and black numbers are also going to increase. So that's not even going to work for them. There's a lot that has to do with this. I understand what my pro-life stance says, and I understand what it does, and I understand what it's going to cost me. I wish the states would put something in place because now you do have low-income women that are now going to have their babies who may not be able to afford to necessarily take care of those babies. And yes, the argument has been given that, it's their responsibility and all that. But again, reality says different. So that means you're going to have more women trying to get food stamps and other assistance. But where's that money going to come from? So it's you know what I'm saying? There's a lot involved in this. So my pro-life stance isn't just abortion is bad, everybody need to have babies, and that's it. No, I'm looking at the bigger picture of this and the longevity of what this is going to cost me. Only thing I want to do is just be able to define the terms of abortion and what it is, in my opinion, and from a legal standpoint, from a scientific standpoint, and if somebody wants to be religious, from a religious standpoint, it's murder. That's a bad word, and I know it. I know it's a bad word. We don't like that word. I understand that. And listen, I'm here. I'm with a woman who once had to have an abortion. Okay, so there's no judgment on my part at all to the women. Period. I don't want any woman to think I'm judging them for a decision they have to make because I am a firm believer that there are valid reasons on why a woman may need to get an abortion. And I understand that sometimes we do the wrong thing for the right reasons. So my thing is, I've always just want to make sure that we call something what it is and then go from there. I don't think that a woman's choice has been taken. It's going to be harder for a lot of women. Some women are going to suffer because of this. I 100% know that. But I also know, and this is just me, and if you watch my other podcasts, I'm all about community helping each other. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do to step up to help these women that now got to have these babies?
All right. Well, I'm going to say this much. When Dre told me that he had a black conservative pro-life person.
No, wait a minute. Hold up. I ain't conservative at all.
Okay, well hold on a second. I had a whole list of arguments I was going to eviscerate you in, but now I see how nuanced and intellectual you are, brother. I guess I'm going to have to throw it away.
I don't recall saying conservative, but I guess I see what you're saying.
No, you didn't. But that's what my brain heard because
okay, all right.
We get so polarized.
Okay,
we get so polarized with the left and right. I just heard pro-life. I'm like, oh, okay, this guy must be Clarence Thomas Jr. But clearly, that is not the case. So I applaud you, James. But to be bluntly honest, and I'm sure you know that I said all that, I agree with a lot what you just said. As a Christian, as most black people who have come from some type of spiritual background, religious background, most of us are not really, we're not pro-abortion, we're pro-choice and pro-life. To be honest, if we can all define, everybody's going to define pro-life differently, right? So my wife and I, we both share a common opinion that, abortion is the death of something. Is it the death of a life, making it a murder? And maybe not. I mean, we can get into the whole discussion about viability. That's neither here or there, but it is the death of something. We can agree on that. The problem that I think that we have to get away from is that, like for instance, as Christians, and I believe that all three of us on here are profess ourselves to be Christians. I know Dre does. Is that we don't live in a theocracy, right? So we have to be very careful about using our belief and our faith as the sole fundamental, measuring stick on how we want to govern and do laws, right?
Right.
Now, it's
Right.
true. They say that you can use the Ten Commandments to make the legal foundation for society. And I agree with that. But we have a society of 330, 50 million people, right? Okay, we need to start looking at other sources of natural law and things that respecting people's rights as individuals, elements of humanism, before we can just say, okay, well, look, if it's not in the Bible, then we're not going to make a law out of it. That being said, and I think you touched on this too, James. One of the problems that I've always had with conservatives and the pro-life stance is that you want to be pro-life, okay, they could be pro-life. The problem is that when the babies get here, then they're against all the programs and all the social programs and everything that the liberals put into place for the kids to actually have a life. Because here's the
Right.
thing, and James, I think your wife, bless her, she had an abortion, and I think that has heavily that has tempered your opinion, and I can see that sensitivity in your stance because it has affected somebody in your life. But a lot of these men who are making these laws, they come across in such a way where I bet you if you ask them, do you know anybody who's had an abortion, they'll probably tell you no. And the reason why
Right.
is not that they don't know that somebody's had an abortion, but no woman would feel that comfortable talking to them because of how their attitude is. We all
Right.
know,
Right.
and I'll wrap it up in a sec. We all know that abortion is going to happen whether it's legal or not. Okay, and that's the other problem. Now I know, James, you said that okay, women still haven't really lost the choice, the option. That's fine. I'll grant you that in the most literal sense. But the problem is that if somebody is in Alabama, let's say, and they need to have an abortion, either they can go to some place local that it's going to be not safe, just the way it used to be prior to 50 years ago, or
Mm-hmm.
they're going to need somebody to give them a ride to what, Georgia? I mean, what's the closest state to Alabama that still is going to provide
Let
abortion?
let me just take a look right here. Let's see. So closest to
Okay.
Alabama, I can't even see because my eyes. Let's see.
Is it Virginia?
It looks like
What
yeah,
color? What color are still doing abortions?
the blue, purple.
All
Let's
right,
say
so
Blue.
that's
purple.
Illinois. Illinois. So they got to go from Alabama to Illinois.
Illinois. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah,
That, I mean, to some women, especially those without resources,
that's a
that
lot.
that's not going to happen.
Right.
And the reason we have to ask is, why did this happen? Granted, maybe it was unconstitutional according to the 10th Amendment. I mean, that's going to be something that's going to be discussed heavily in the years to come. Got it. But but what was the reason behind this for them to do this? That's going to affect all these women this way.
Right.
Yeah.
Good point.
It's so for me, like I say, and like you were saying before, we understand the reasoning, one of the real reasonings behind this. I think they knew before the census that numbers were dwindling. Um, and this is why Trump made it a mission of his to get these pro life justices on there to go ahead and get this done. So again, if this is a touchy subject, and I understand that, and trust me, I've been cussed out. I've been, I've been I I get it. I get it. But like I say, the one thing that I don't have to argue about, like I said, are the reasons why women get abortions. There are many valid reasons on why it happens. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just it's there. My problem is I can remember with my first wife, um, she had she had complications from a previous pregnancy, and we were from Michigan. We moved down here, and she got pregnant. And one of the first things the doctor told us was, this pregnancy may be hard on you. You might want to go ahead and think about abortion. Like that was the first thing that came out of his mouth. Not we're going to try to treat you, or, let's see if we can help you. The first thing he wanted to do was, y'all can go have an abortion. I think that's a problem. I don't think that should be the first thing that's suggested. Like I say, there are reasons why women have abortions. There are statistics that say that Black women are more prone to be sick or have some sort of complications during pregnancy. I don't know how valid the numbers are, but I think it said like something like 37%.
Hold
But
on, let me hop in. I am speaking from, obviously, when I say firsthand experience, we know what I'm talking about. But gestational diabetes actually disproportionately affects Black women higher than at least white women. I don't know about Hispanics, and that is very much real, and it definitely can cause some problems later on down the road. So,
okay, so yeah, that's an issue. But again, as far with me, because of the whole history of eugenics and Margaret Sanger and all this stuff, um, I'm I'm cautious about that. I'm really cautious, and a lot of women, if you think about it, fellas, a lot of women, if you talk to who've had abortions, a lot of these women didn't necessarily want to have the abortion, but they figured there was no other choice.
mhm,
Some of them financially,
that's right.
some of them because maybe their mothers were sick when they were pregnant and they were scared that something was going to happen to them. My thing is, I just want to make sure that women have all the information and all the support they need to make the decision. That's my goal. So if she goes and she's not financially secure yet, okay, I want to make sure she has all the information if there are support systems in place for her or anything like that. If not, then she has to make the best decision for her. Now,
Yeah.
again, I said this word murder earlier that we don't like, we don't want to be associated with. We, I get it, but just from and even scientifically, because fellas, have y'all ever heard of the Unborn Victims of Violence Act of 2004?
I have not. I haven't.
That's
Okay,
when somebody, if a pregnant woman is abused or murdered, that the unborn child is taken into account in the sentencing.
right. They can charge that person with a double homicide, or
Right.
a homicide if the baby dies. This starts at the embryo stage, so that's right after fertilization. Because because science says, and the law says that at that point it is a human life. So my thing is, if you can charge a person with murder of that baby, if he does something to the mother and it's called murder, then my just being me, then it's murder all around the board.
All right. So this is where I gotta hop in. So
Okay.
we have to be very careful as a society of using legal defenses and legal strategies, even legal judgments, when you're trying to apply it to other parts of society. Inside a courtroom, remember, a lawyer is duty bound to provide the best defense possible. And in the
Mm-hmm.
vein of that, um, the United States courts, criminal court systems have come up with some of the most creative, borderline ludicrous defenses possible. I mean, do you remember things like there was one where it was a rich white kid got caught doing something, and they basically they came up with a name for the fact that because he was rich and privileged, he it was like an illness that he was sick from.
There's always an
And
illness when it's.
yeah,
Yep.
but
Right.
they actually came up with a name for it, and if I say it, you'll be like, "Oh, the light bulb will go off." So I don't mean to make light what you said, James, but it's a legal defense. Now, here's the thing, and this is what the other side of the argument. The other side of the argument is going to be, well, listen, the embryo cannot survive outside the womb. Okay, in fact, you can freeze an embryo. They just had a baby was born with an embryo that had been frozen for 27 years. Okay, you
Hmm.
can't freeze a baby 27 years, but you can freeze an embryo for 27 years. And the reason why the embryo is not a life. So, and then, and I know you said you've been, your wife, you got kids. And, for many people, the when the baby is growing inside the mother, obviously in the early stages, it's part of the mother. It cannot survive on its own outside the womb. Now, if we want to get into discussion about late term abortions, well, I caution everybody about that as well, because most women are not having abortions, 36 weeks, 35
Right.
weeks, because,
Right. Yeah,
oh, they
that's
decide,
not
well, you know
happening
what?
for real.
I've carried this baby for 7 months and now I don't want to have it anymore.
I don't want it.
No,
Right.
yeah, I mean, almost like 9 times out of 10, when a woman has a
That's not
late-term
happening.
abortion, it's because of health, right?
Right.
Something happened, there's a defect, health of the mother, stuff like that. But they use these situations to get people riled up. A lot of people who never had a child, who's never been involved with the birthing of any of a child, and they say, yeah, late term abortions, Democrats, liberals, blah blah blah, the black people, whoever they want to villainize, want late term abortions. No, I don't want late term abortions, but sometimes they're needed. So
Right.
I'm just saying we got to be careful with that.
I honestly think when the Supreme Court had made that ruling, I think they should have put some type of addendum in there for all the states, like if it's rape or if it threatens the health of the mother. I think it should, they should get a pass on that, or be able to have an abortion. But I was surprised that it was just flat out they banned it. It was
Right.
surprising to
So
me.
hold on. What you just said, Ray. So even George Bush II, when he ran for president, most of the time, most Republican politicians up until Trump had said, "Oh yeah, I'm against abortion except rape, incest, and
Except
the health of
for
the mother."
right.
That,
Yep.
that that that's always been the three things that most moderate anybody with any sense. Then the Trump came, and then now we're starting to see, nah, it doesn't matter. It's regardless, even if those three conditions apply. The Democrats for a long time, and this is where they dropped the ball. They could have put that into a federal law, but they never thought that there was going to be any justices that actually would overturn Roe v. Wade. So they didn't spend that time, because we got to
Right.
remember this. Every one of the Supreme Court justices, there's 6 of them, right? Everybody except Clarence Thomas, the other 5, all said at their confirmation hearings that Roe v. Wade was settled law.
Right.
Mhm.
And that question, they're basically meaning that, yeah, it's been settled. We're not going to try to overturn it. All 5 of them lied.
Well, we knew that was a lie when they said it.
Yep. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay, but you want to talk about undermining our faith in the system. This is a bold-faced lie. This
Yeah.
is a lie. There's no going back from it, you know.
Let me ask
Well,
you
this
And
this.
is why.
there's no twisting of it either.
Let me ask you
Right.
this. There's no rule or no law that says you can't do it. It popped in my mind. I don't think Biden would do it, because personally I think Biden's a little soft, but he probably won't remember anyway. But I thought it was wrong. I'm sorry, y'all. Whoever's watching, I'm sorry, y'all. I just it just came out. Put it back in there. I'm sorry, y'all. But do you think? I mean, Democrats, they have, they got the power to make some moves. Do you think they should expand? You think they would or should expand the number of Supreme Court justices to just to have more or equal to what Republicans have, or what do you think of that?
Joe Manchin would never allow it.
You don't think so? Well, I don't think Joe Manchin is a Democrat anyway. I mean, he is, but he's just one of
Between
them.
Christine Sinema and Joe Manchin, there's no even reason to waste breath on that conversation, brother. That's never going to happen.
Oh
Listen,
man,
we got a black woman on there. Be happy about that. Just
Yeah,
take
and
just
she's a
take
credit.
that one and be happy. Just
yeah. I would say
Yeah,
that.
so that just means that, unless something happens to Clarence Thomas, before Biden gets out of office, is that we're going to have 6-3 for at least another good 10 years.
at least
Hmm.
10 years.
at least.
Wow.
Absolutely.
You
And,
think all of this is going to change the next election? Will be a focal point of it?
I mean, it
Uh,
depends. Can your cousins get out and vote in the fall and in 2024,
You
or are they
gonna
going to
have
sit back
food
and
and music?
or are they going? Yeah, I know.
Let me stop.
Are they
That
going
was
to set up
wrong.
wings and barbecue
I'm just
and music at the vote at the polls?
you. Come on, man. That's wrong, man.
Or are they going to sit back and say whoever the candidate is going to be for the Democrats in 2024? Well, you know, they're not liberal enough, or they're not whatever reason. What was the knock against Hillary? Was it her emails? Nobody liked Hillary. Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton did two things in the debates in 2016 against Donald Trump, and everybody laughed at her. She called Trump a Russian puppet. So
Which he
guess who's
is.
laughing
Yep.
now?
Yep.
Okay. And she also said that he was going to be he was basically going to try to overturn Roe v. Wade.
yep.
Man.
She said it.
She said this. So you know what? I'm willing to vote for Hillary in 2024.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you something else as well. And I know this has nothing to do with the topic that we're talking about. But in 2020, with COVID, remember in March of 2020 when the first COVID case, I think it happened in it was like San Francisco or something like that. They found the first case was in San Francisco. Donald Trump got up there and said, "Well, blah blah. This thing is going to go down. The cases will go down to zero in a couple of weeks."
Yep.
3 days later, the next batch of cases was in New York, which
Yeah.
means that
Doctor.
somebody had
Yeah.
gotten on a plane and flown across country. And at that point in time, you know that the cat's out the box. Anybody who has watched any vampire movie, any zombie movie, knows basic epidemiology is that when you have one area, okay, if you can quarantine that one area and shut it down, that's how you stop it. All the other
Right.
countries had already tried that. I guarantee you, and I'm not a Hillary Clinton fan. I only voted for her once. Exactly. Okay. But she would have been like, okay, shut down San Francisco. Nancy Pelosi would have been like, shut down San Francisco. And I will guarantee you about 900,000 Americans will still be alive today.
Mm.
Mm.
Oh. And I think people need to understand this has nothing to do with Roe, not directly Roe versus Wade, but people need to understand these presidential elections are very important, but it's even more important to for the local voting because
Right.
you control you control what's like. I'll give you a perfect example. So in Virginia, we had a Democratic governor, right? And there was some governors in some states that was like, the hell with COVID, we go business as usual. And because those people got voted in, those people who are against that, you had to roll with it because that's what your governor said. Your governor was a whatever Republican governor, whatever, and he got voted in, and those are the rules of the law in that state. So here, in Virginia, they went about it pretty. I would say he did a good job with COVID. But hadn't we not voted for him or voted him in, then it would have been someone else, maybe a Republican governor, and it could have been worse. So people need to understand that your local voting is a lot. I think it's a lot more important than your presidential election because it's directly. It deals more directly with you when it's local. You know what I mean? When it's state and local. So, I just think people need to understand that. You know what I mean? So, but I'm gonna wrap it up here with some final thoughts. I want final thoughts from both of you. Just give me your final thoughts. You know how I do, and then we're just gonna wrap it up. Who wants to start first? The final thoughts.
We'll let the guests go first.
Brother James. It's like we having prayer.
Well,
Brother James.
Well, man, you know what? I appreciate these conversations, man, and I really just I want women to know that most of us are on your side. Okay,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Regardless, like I say, I have a pro-life stance, but in no way, shape, or form do I think that a woman should just definitely not have a choice or be banned from this. because there are far too many reasons why a woman may need to have an abortion. Look, even check this out. Even if I don't agree with it, it ain't for me to agree with. Then that's fine. You know what I'm saying? That's the one thing that we've got to understand is, and this is what I always try to push people. Even if we have different opinions, it's just our opinions. Everything I say and what I think is just my opinions. Now I try to give facts, and try to give the data and see what the data says, but that's all it is data. So if a woman tells me, well, I'm sick and I needed to have an abortion, then I shut my mouth. I'm not finna argue with you. I'm not finna, baby, go do what you gotta do. And that's just the end of it. I think we spend, even as Christians, I think we spend too much time debating and talking about things that we can't change. There's people that's actually, so what I'd like to ask Christians is, so now that you've cheered Roe versus Wade being overturned and you're so much against abortion, what are you gonna do to help your sister when she has to have a baby that she can't take care of? Are you gonna
Mhm.
help her? Are you gonna help provide support for her? Or are you just gonna sit back and tell her it's her responsibility? Too many Christians like to talk, but they don't like to do nothing. So me and my pro-life Christian self know that I gotta step up to be able to help some people when all this starts to happen and all these children start coming.
All right.
And I'm willing to do it.
All right. David.
Well, I should probably went first because only on Speak Now or Hold Your Peace will you actually gonna have a pro-life person and a pro-choice person agreeing on about a good 90%. But I will say this much. I think this dialogue between the three of us and James introduces another layer to the whole pro-life, pro-choice discussion. And I think it is like everything else in this country, race and class, but mostly race, tinges everything. I mean, I think when it comes into when you look at on the white side between white pro-choice and white pro-life, I think that's a different discussion than when we bring it over into the black community because everything plays a little differently over here. And I think probably if you can pull a lot of black pro-life Christians away out of their churches where they sit in churches with a lot of people that don't look like them, I think they probably do sound a lot like James. And we can laugh and giggle, but at the end of the day, this is something that's going to have to be addressed moving
Right.
forward because I think a lot of folks who are sitting in these churches with people who may or may not look like them, hearing pastors speak this pro life message, when they come back home to the black community, that message and how you apply it is going to be very difficult when we are dealing with the economic issues that face black women. Because I want to tell you, black women, when they get pregnant, their first inclination is not to have an abortion. And to be
Right.
honest with you, I don't think really it's any woman first inclination to have an abortion. Not, I mean, unless you're talking about really extreme circumstances or
Right.
somebody is very, very young. I think it's incredibly offensive that you have these white male conservatives who presume to tell these women, all these women, that they know more about what they should do with these children than they do. And if they are going to presume to know more about it, then they sit back and deny funding to all these programs, Head Start, the free breakfasts, all these programs that liberals have been trumpeting
Right.
for decades to provide support. So when a woman is pregnant, she can say, you know what, the resources are out there for me to try to take care of this kid. So they're pro-life right up until the point where the kid gets here, and then now you're on your own.
Right.
Yep.
So again, that's all. And James, we definitely gonna have to chop it up offline. And I love the diversity and the similarity at the same time. So much love,
Yes, sir.
brother.
Yes, sir.
So usually I don't give a final word, but I just want to say, you just say one thing that's on my mind. For my black sisters, I'm behind you. I'm behind you. Um, I will fight for your rights to the death. Like I am behind you. That's what I think. That's what y'all need to know.
From a man who has 2 daughters. That's right.
We are black men are behind you. You know. Secondly, for all the white male conservatives and not just them, but like there are some who will do this, but for there's some people who are pro life who won't. But for those who won't, those who are pro life, please remember your strong opinions about pro life and your fight for life when the next black man gets shot by a cop. Can you just do that?
Well, you asking too much now.
That's all I'm asking. I know it's a lot.
I know it's a whole different show.
I know it's a lot. I know it's a lot. I know it's hard, but just remember that. Pro life. Everybody should live. Everybody should live. Boom, cop shoots a guy. Well, he had a history of, he's been arrested 6 times. Get the hell out of here. Like, really. Just remember that.
10 years ago, he stole a candy bar at the convenience store.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Blue Lives Matter.
He's exactly. And God. And just one more thing. Just one more thing before we go. Because I think some people still don't understand this. When we say Black Lives Matter, we are not saying that no other life matters. We are saying that Black Lives matter just as much. They matter too, just as much as yours. And we want to be on that same level of how you value your life. Right. Okay? So Black Lives Matter, that means just going to bring it up so we can all see on the same level. It's not down here. Just same level. All right? Just wanted to say that. Everybody else, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. James, stay on once we get off here. You yes, too, sir. David. But I want to thank everybody for watching, man. This was a great conversation, and I'm looking forward to having more like this. I got to have you back on here, James. But everybody else, love you much, man. Stay up, and we love you. We out. Peace. All right. Hey.
Thank you for watching the Speak Now Hold Your Peace live broadcast. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and join us on the Speak Now Hold Your Peace Facebook group.